Hi, everyone. Welcome to our presentation, Bringing Joy to Vivre Back, Workplace Burnout and Black Women in Academia. We want to start by telling you a little bit about ourselves. My name is Vivian Bynoe, and I am Head of Reference and Instruction at Georgia Southern University Libraries on the Armstrong campus. I work with students and faculty in the College of Education, Social Sciences, and Military Science.
I am Kay Coates, Research and Reference Librarian on the Statesboro campus, Henderson Library, and my main liaison area is College of Education.
We want to start by telling you about the objectives for our presentation and what we want you to leave with, and that is a better understanding of the definition of workplace burnout. We want you to be able to examine the impact that intersectionality has on the Black woman in academia, learn how to use Schoen's critical reflection model to address stressors in the workplace, and to have an increased awareness of being well from a more sustainable, holistic perspective through self-regulated learning and collective social support.
The problem we will be addressing in this workshop basically centers around COVID-19 and its impact on burnout for women in the academy. So COVID-19 pandemic disrupted normalcy for everyone, but more critically, it impacted the lived experiences of Black women. Think back to mid-March 2020, when for many of us, the domestic and occupational space became one and the same. Evidently, caregiving responsibilities increased. Entered trauma mitigation and trauma facilitation in terms of the people who in our lives were either being impacted by COVID, having COVID, having to take care of folks who had COVID, some people who are living with long COVID, and in addition to many homeschooling responsibilities that automatically became another item on our mundane to-do list. Needless to say, job creep ensued, even as social and civic unrest continued. Saddled with all the weightiness of such burdens, including race battle fatigue, anti-Blackness maneuvers that color the occupational experiences of so many of our sisters, which was loaded with compounded stress. And this was the perfect admixture for burnout to manifest itself. So what is burnout? According to ICD-11, burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three main dimensions: the feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficiency. With burnout, we wanted to focus on joy. And in the French, joie de vivre translates to the joy of living. It is the delight of being alive, and that is what we want to focus mostly in this workshop. So I'll hand you over to Vivian.
To provide some background about intersectionality, the term was coined over 30 years ago by Kimberly Crenshaw. Intersectionality was a prism to bring to light dynamics within discrimination law that weren't being appreciated by the courts. So at the time, they were looking at cases and just acknowledging that, okay, well, the victim in this case is a woman, but not recognizing that, okay, this person is a Black woman. So you have to look at race and gender together because the two cannot be separated for that person. Intersectionality is simply about how certain aspects of who you are will increase your access to good things or your exposure to bad things in life. So we bring our full selves to the workplace, and our experiences are part of that. And intersectionality is very important, especially when we're talking about workplace burnout and the way that we experience it as Black women in academia. So our experiences within the past couple of years, especially with the pandemic and dealing with all the things that Kay mentioned earlier, we work in the academic setting in an academic library. I myself am an administrator, and so I'm also on tenure track. Burnout has definitely increased for me after earning a promotion in 2020, having to manage my department. And because I have a small department currently with just 3 people, the workloads tend to be very high anyway. We are responsible for providing reference service to our campus of about 5,000 students and another smaller campus that is about 45 minutes away, which requires travel when necessary to provide instruction. The pandemic has definitely increased the mental exhaustion, political unrest, and what's going on just in the world is also a part of that. I noticed that I've gotten so busy that I don't take the time to stop and enjoy things like I used to. So as Kay and I were having this discussion, we thought about, okay, what are some ways that we can address this?
Following up on what Vivian just told you, I have a similar experience. As an instruction librarian for the College of Ed, which is one of the largest colleges on campus, the unceremonious pivot to online instruction quadrupled my workload as the calls for support beyond the usual academic research engagement took on a more frenzied collaboration to meet the immediate needs of digital teaching and learning efforts, because some professors were trying to incorporate new software and they wanted help with testing. Some of them wanted more assistance with compiling reading lists that included digital materials. And so my workload became humongous beyond normally what it was. All the while, I was accommodating or filling in as still facilitator and tester for some other educational practitioners on or off campus. And with all the civic unrest that was going on, at some point I had to ask myself one question. And that is the question I so often greet others with: how are you doing? The answer was shockingly clear. Not your best. That was the answer I got from myself. I recognized that my game plan was grand, but my game performance lacked the usual zest. So enter the topic of self-care practices. It was flashing green, neon green for me, and I had to stop and say, you know what? I really need to start inculcating the practices I know for wellness again into my life, because I just got too busy focusing on trying to meet the needs of my occupation and meet the needs of my family and trying to navigate those two areas.
So the question that Kay asked herself, how am I doing, is a good example of reflection. How often do you take time to stop and reflect? Very often, a negative or uncomfortable situation, what we call a critical incident, can prompt reflection. We can learn from the mistakes, but we can also focus on the positive and reflect on that. If something positive has happened, how can we reproduce that again in future situations? So no matter whether you're reflecting on a negative or a positive experience, it's important to take the time to do it. So we're going to give you a practical tool to use to be able to reflect for professional development and for personal development.
In terms of reflection, we relied on Sean's model. And Sean's model of reflection is all about performance awareness, self-reflection in the flow, which is reflection in action, and self-reflection after the flow, which is reflection on action. So for example, I am leaving home for work. I jump in my car, and then I recognize that I am low on gas. So I have to make a stop at the filling station to fill up my gas tank. Well, haven't done that, and I recognize, oh my gosh, I am now going to be 10 minutes late. And so calculatively in my head, I said, you know what, I'm going to take the first exit rather than taking the fifth exit, which is my normal route to work. In doing so, I'm actually reflecting in action. I am thinking at my steering wheel, not just on my feet, but at my steering wheel. And I'm thinking about what I should do next to see if I can somehow make up for the 10 minutes that I think I'm going to be late, which is totally impossible, but this is how my mind is working. I'm acting straight away. I'm saying, okay, I'll take the first exit, and then I'll use the very first gate. Normally, I use the third gate. But here I am saying, if I do all of this, I'm going to clip some time. But as we all know, that is just wishful thinking. But in the moment, I'm reflecting in action. And I'm saying, I'm doing this so that I can make up for the 10 minutes that I would think I'm going to be late. But on reflection on action now, I should think, you know what, the next time I'm going to fill my gas tank, I'm going to check first of all and make sure that when I get home, I fill my gas tank so that the next day I don't have to stop at the filling station. And then outside of that, I'm going to leave home a little bit more early. So just in case there's a backup in traffic, that I will have ample enough time to get to work without being filled with anxiety and attempting to make a projection into the future, even though I don't have a crystal ball.
Applying Sean's technique for reflection can enable you to build confidence in your decision. Reflective practice also allows you to develop an awareness that you may not have been able to do without using some type of technique to ensure that that's what you're doing. Reflection encourages creative innovation and deepens your own learning while informing your future actions. For reflection on action after a situation happens, one thing that you can try to do is to set aside the last hour, 30 minutes, or even 15 minutes of your day. Take out a journal and write about things that did not go so well, and also things that did go well. Develop a plan of action for what you can do differently the next time, or what you want to reproduce and the actions that you took in order for that to happen. You can use this technique for professional or personal development. For reflection in action, you can use what is called the think aloud technique, where you verbalize your thoughts during, before, or right after an action. Talk about what you're currently observing, the actions you're taking, and the consequences. So that does sound awkward, and maybe in some situations you can't do that, verbalize your reflection, so you can write things down in the moment or immediately afterwards as well. You see a few examples of questions here. So we look at the 3 areas of before an experience, questions that you can ask yourself. What do you think might happen? What do you think the challenges might be? Or what do you need to know in order to be prepared for this experience? During an experience, what's happening right now as you're making these rapid decisions? Is it working out? How are you handling the situation in the moment? What are you learning? And after an experience, what are your immediate insights? In retrospect, how did it go? What do you value? And so on. So you'll have access to this to be able to use it in your own situation.
So as we reflect, we want to refocus on joy. And that takes awareness. It involves self-preservation and self-regulation. Personally, what I do when I feel rushed or I feel anxiety peaking, I stop for 2 minutes and I literally go to this website and I sit still for 2 minutes. Be warned that if you move, you have to start over at the beginning. So I suggest that if you're going to do this, do it with the intention that you will just sit still for 2 minutes and focus on something positive. Look around. If you're in your office, then you look around your office and just listen to your breath. Just listen to maybe the sound of the AC, or listen to just the stillness within the space. Try to center yourself, recognize your heartbeat, and just think about the fact that you're alive in this moment. And this moment is now, just being present in the now. That allows you to appreciate the fact that you can breathe in, breathe out. You have all your senses. You can think, you can feel, you can see, you can hear, you can smell, you can touch, and you can build on that and think about, by extension, the rapport you have with your colleagues, the people who are in your life that makes you have value and feel valued. Think about the things that you want for yourself that will increase your productivity, that will make your life better, that you will focus on in terms of being a better person, just appreciating nature, the space that you're in, the body that you're in, the fact that you are here. And I do that for 2 minutes, and when I'm done, I feel much more energized and alive. The other thing I do is sit and look at this site. What catches me all the time with this site is the collage of colors, textures, movement, the fish, the shapes. And I say that because normally some people tend to think that shapes and colors has to be a particular way. It has to be either horizontal or vertical. And we think that a wave does not necessarily match with a line. But if we really take this whole site in, we recognize that the interplay of colors and textures and movement really has an impact on our being. It makes us think about just being still and just admiring the fact that if you look at the fish just gliding along, it looks like it's doing it effortlessly. It puts you in a mode to relax. And I find this very relaxing in addition to listening to the sound. So I'd recommend that when you find yourself in a hurried situation and you just got a couple of minutes, that you can go to this site and just sit still. Just look at the colors, the textures, the sound, the movement, and see it freedom, the way the fishes just move without being told to move or without any sort of prodding to be themselves.
There are a couple of other tools that we want to share with you. And the first one is called a feelings wheel or an emotion wheel. Some people even call it a color wheel. So this is a way to help us connect with our emotions. And so often we're told that it's not a good thing to have feelings or to show how you're feeling. You may not have been taught how to connect with your emotions. So this was created by Robert Plutchik to help us visualize the complexity of our emotions so that we can identify and label them. The emotion wheel uses color to depict discrete emotions and blends of emotion using the gradients to express intensity. And you may have seen this formatted in a different way. There are different versions of this. It's a really useful tool in individual therapy or group settings or just on your own to help you identify, generate, and explore the complexity of all of the emotions. It can be used to reflect on some of the bridges that you experience between different emotions, such as anger and sadness, that often occur at the same time. So one tool we highly encourage you to use, whether you look at it on your computer or you decide to print it out and have a copy that you can hold on to. Another tool that can help you ground yourself is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. So grounding is a practice that helps you breathe and connect to the present moment. It helps you to refocus when you are feeling stressed, anxious, foggy, or even just off. Sometimes we can't put a name on how we're feeling, but if you just take a minute to stop and do this, it can help you focus a little bit. So you start with 5 things that you can see in the space around you. What's in front of you? What do you see behind you? Or what do you see above? 4 things that you can feel. Focus in on your body. Are your hands resting somewhere? Are your feet touching the floor? Do you feel a draft or a breeze? 3 things that you can hear. So listen for 3 different sounds. It could be people talking, the sound of your own breath, your paper shuffling. 2 things that you can smell. Is there anything in your space that you can smell? Coffee brewing, toner from the copier. If you can't smell anything, think about smells that you enjoy. And finally, 1 thing that you can taste. Toothpaste, maybe if you just brushed your teeth, a snack you just ate, or if you don't taste anything, remember the taste of the food that you enjoyed the most. An alternative for the final step is to bring the focus back to positivity and describe 1 quality, 1 good quality about yourself. And remember to be kind.
And in being kind, you're encouraged to radiate joy. In radiating joy, you will actually be cultivating happiness. And you might say to me, well, how do I do that? And I'll tell you what I do. I inhale deeply and exhale slowly. I seek the source in the silence. Like when I sit for 2 minutes and do nothing, I just seek the source in those 2 minutes. I summon and I store the energy from just doing that for 2 minutes and welcome wellness wholeheartedly into my system. And then I release the fragrance of fear. And you might say to me, does fear have a fragrance? For me, yes. It is a dark, smoky scent that I don't want to ever have to keep in my body. And so I learned to sow to succeed sustainably. So I sow positivism, optimism in those moments. I think about the best possible outcomes for whatever that is facing me at that point in time or in my day. And I learned in the process to harness the hive. And you say to me, what is the hive? My hive are those people that enrich my life, my colleagues who I collaborate with, my loved ones, the students I serve, because it gives me purpose. And I learned to, as well, to align with allyship, those people who will understand or make an effort to understand the differences in privilege and power as it relates to the social experience of ethnicity and race. I learned to practice playing positively, and playing could be playing on the job in terms of how I navigate my occupational space. It could be physically playing, standing outside in the sun and just absorbing its rays so that I can get some more vitamin D. I also learned to embrace the moment fully and accept that in this moment, I am present in this space. And I am here because I serve a purpose beyond myself. And I learned to appreciate the pause. If I'm running around and I said, you know what, I just got to stop and take a moment. I appreciate that pause. And I learned to identify the joy in the journey. I am here, but it took so many deliberate steps, climbing over some hurdles to be here. And I enjoy the fact that I'm here in this moment, and I celebrate the calm that creatively comes with being here in the moment. I learned to reflect constantly to rejuvenate. So I look back at where I came from, what has brought me here, what keeps me here. And in that, I learned to laugh. And somebody said to me, leverage laughter, what is that? And I tell my friends, you know, I usually practice laughter yoga. And they're like, what? Laughter who? Oh, we all laugh. Yes, laughter yoga. It is spontaneous and it makes the other person laugh, even though unintentionally they didn't want to laugh. And they're like, what? Laughter yoga. So yeah, and that's one way of pampering myself. And I say pamper to prosper purposely, because you pamper yourself, maybe just a cup of tea. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'll have me a cup of tea and I'll sit and just enjoy the moment and the fact that I'm alive in this body, in this time, and in this space.
We have compiled a list of resources for you to refer back to. Some mentioned during this presentation, others are additional resources. There are so many tools out there, free tools for you to use to help radiate joy. So please be sure to check those out. You'll receive a copy of the handout. And Kay and I put together a list of songs in Spotify. If you just do a search for that title, Black Women, Joie de Vivre, you will be able to access the list, and it is collaborative. So feel free to add the songs that bring you joy, so that way we all can share with each other.
Now we come to the point of comments or questions. We totally enjoy being here. It is a privilege to have this workshop, and we invite you to contact us if you have any questions or comments, or contact information is there. So feel free. And once again, we want to say thank you for this opportunity.